It's now time for this month's broadcast of Learning Now TV.
Welcome to the May programme for Learning Now TV. And before we begin, I've just got a little bit of news that I'd like to drop into the air, into the firmament. And that is, Kate, you have a new job.
I do have a new job, yes. I don't know how many people will be excited about that. But
I'm
after
excited.
after 2 amazing years at Unleash, which I've absolutely loved every moment of, it's been incredible. I'm actually taking a leap into new territory and going to look after competitive intelligence for Cornerstone. So market leader, big into skills, kind of home turf for me in terms of obviously, you know, the talent and the learning side of the market. So very, very excited to sort of build a bird's eye view, I suppose, of everything that's going on right the way across learning and HR technology.
Yeah, well, congratulations. And I think you're right. It will give you that bird's eye view, which will be very, very helpful for me as well as you and everyone else. I'll get to learn a whole load of stuff that I don't know already. So it's a really packed show in May. And I'd like you just to share a few highlights, Kate, before we move on.
Well, we've got some crackers coming up. So somebody I've known, I feel like almost my whole career, Ben Betts, who is now sort of climbed the pinnacle and is running Learning Pool. Very excited to hear from him about Learning Pool becoming a B Corp, which is great. I actually first heard Rob Hubbard, I think, talk about that. He was one of the first people I heard talk about that, maybe even on Learning Now TV. Stella Collins starts her new exclusive series with us. We're thrilled to have her. Obviously, she is, knows everything about the brain. And in this first episode, she invites you to meet your brain. So I don't know. I'm maybe a bit scared to meet my brain, but looking forward to that from Stella. Esther Redmond from Wood Green Pets Charity talks to Michelle Parry-Slater about the important but often forgotten topic of reflection. Very important. Not a lot of us carve out enough time for that. Bob Mosher returns with part 3 of his series on virtual instruction. I'm sure all of you are loving Bob's work there. And then, as ever, Robin Hoyle, Mr. Dependable, reflects on some of his recent interviews. And I think this is really nice opportunity again to reflect. So to tie that back to what Esther's talking about. And Rob Clark will be here with his news roundup as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Kate. It is a packed show, which I hope everyone will enjoy. It's always a pleasure to catch up with Ben Betts. Ben is the CEO of Learning Pool, a company based in Northern Ireland, in Derry, but with an increasingly global footprint, particularly in America. It's getting a huge amount of traction in the US, from my experience and my contact with colleagues across the pond. First of all, Ben, welcome. It's very good to see you, very good to talk to you.
Great to be back. Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you. No, it's a pleasure. But what I want to touch on to start with, before we get on to the main body of the interview, which is about Learning Pool becoming a B Corp, which is an extraordinary achievement. I really want to talk about that in depth. But just to note the Fosway 9 grid on digital learning, which came out a few weeks ago. Up there, right at the top as strategic leader, is Learning Pool. And I've watched the trajectory kind of almost diagonally leap through the grid and to consolidate your position in that top corner. And for those who don't know it, it's a review of all of the big players in digital learning, from the potential challengers, the ones kind of emerging, through to the big beasts, really, which is the strategic leaders. and Learning Pool is firmly in there. So first of all, congratulations. And is this where you wanted to go? Is this the trajectory that you've taken the company since you became chief executive?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely a culmination of where we wanted to go. To get there was an achievement. To stay there is an even more difficult achievement. The sort of inertia that sort of drags everyone back towards lower positions is real. So I'm very pleased to have got there, to have maintained it, and to be consistently recognised as a strategic leader in our industry. And yeah, that is the culmination of an awful lot of work, both on platforms and on content, trying to be that holistic, all-in-one organization. And that's what we think it takes to be a true strategic leader in our sector.
But when a customer interacts with Learning Pool, they don't get one thing, do they? They get a number of choices depending on what they need and when they need it and how they need it. And I think that's one of the great strengths of Learning Pool, is its plurality and its flexibility.
Yeah, and I think it stands us in good stead for what comes next. We believe we're an all-in-one platform provider, and we cover that complete employee life cycle from onboarding when somebody first comes in, to the sort of statutory mandatory compliance that folks might need to do, through to upskilling. And we've been placing pieces of the puzzle together over a number of years. So that's come organically. Some of it's homegrown, some of it's come through M&A. Last year, we acquired True Office Learning, who's a real leader in the sort of adaptive compliance space in North America. That really leapt us forward in terms of compliance. Later in 2022, we acquired a Swiss company called People Analytics, who got a really smart piece of AI on the skills piece. And that's really leapt us forward in terms of finding out more about what are the skills people should be investing in order to move forward in their career, and how they're going to do that from a workforce management perspective. So those pieces coming together, buying where it's appropriate to move faster and to go deeper into an area than it would probably be possible to do on an organic basis, but consistently organically growing both our platform and customer base at the same time is kind of the plan. So now we've got all three pieces in place. I think being a strategic leader is kind of the appropriate place for us.
It is really, because you're a soup to nuts provider now, with real depth in all of those areas that you've mentioned, that we've just discussed. So again, just a one more congratulations for getting there and sustaining your position and growing. Every time I look at Learning Pool, there's another string to your bow. And I think that's a tribute to the way the organization thinks about its role in the industry, and is never satisfied, never sits there saying, oh, we've done it. And now you're up there with the big guys, and congratulations. So let's just talk back to B Corp, which is the original reason for the call. I read the press release and I thought, this is fascinating. You're the first big L&D player in the B Corp space. But just for those who are not sure, what is a B Corp? And then tell me why it's important to you.
So B Corp is a global movement that seeks to change the way we think about how businesses and society interacts. So it would have lots of things in common with things like CSR or ESG as the sort of movements around better environmental, social, and governance issues are coming forward. One of its core tenets, though, is that it asks that a company makes a commitment in its articles of incorporation to say that it exists for the benefit of all stakeholders, not just shareholders. And that's quite a big move. In some ways it is, and in some ways it's not. So, we are a private equity-backed organization. And when you think about private equity, you probably think about, you think about shareholders, and you think about shareholder value and something like that. And that's often the sort of, are we creating shareholder value sort of mantra of things. But what the B Corp asks you to do is to not just think about shareholder value. That's important. And that remains critical to the growth of the organization. But there are many stakeholders, both customers, employees, suppliers, as well as your traditional shareholders, that need to be considered in the running of the business. So at a sort of a board level now, becoming a B Corp involves making a commitment that your business exists for the benefit of all stakeholders, not just shareholders. And that means we have to take into consideration how we're going to impact the planet, how we're going to impact people, be they our customers, our employees, or suppliers, as well as thinking about how we're going to impact our our share value, as it sounds like that. So quite a big movement for a private equity sort of backed organization.
Yes.
But actually, if you look a little bit deeper, there's a lot of it. Yeah, there's a
How
reasonable.
difficult was it? How difficult was it to talk to talk to the owners and say, we really want to look at the whole broad benefits that we can, our kind of footprint on the planet rather than just on our bottom line? How did that get? How was that accepted?
Yeah, well, I think it's about alignment more than anything else. So, and I think you find that there's quite a lot of private equity firms themselves are actually B Corp accredited, and some of that might be to do with countering the narrative that they're just out for money when they're not. I think a lot of it's about picking up the zeitgeist about what sort of businesses customers want to do business with, and so we, in our sector, we benefit from being on the moral right side of virtually everything. We're in education, we're in freedom, we're in wanting people to improve and upskill. We're in a good place. This is a good, healthy industry to be in, especially for one from an ESG sort of principle. So, our sort of core belief at Learning Pool is that people work with us because they know the benefit of investing in people. They've seen the extraordinary outcomes of investing in people, and they want to do more of it. And so becoming a B Corp really aligns with that for us. This is what we do. We invest in people. We invest our time and resources in tools, in software, in content that allows people to invest in themselves or to invest in each other, as it were. And so being a B Corp is kind of the epitome of that. Right?
So it's a step in a direction you were going already, not a massive leap into something unknown or something completely different.
Totally, and we didn't have to do anything different to what we already do to become B Corp accredited. It's a really arduous process to be audited to become a B Corp thing, real pain, frankly. But we didn't have to change any of our working practices to meet the grade. We were already good enough in what we were doing to make the grade for it. We just had to evidence it.
So what is it going to do for you? Now you are a B Corp. What are you going to do with it?
So I think there's kind of three value propositions, as it were, that it turns on for me. One is about the customer. So quite often, if you're going to the market for a platform and you get a bunch of vendors to reply to you, for example, most of those RFPs will come with a bit in it that says, talk to us about your environmental policies, talk to us about what you do for the community, talk to us about this, because people actually want to see that their suppliers are more than just a business. And that can be quite hard to evidence sometimes. It feels like you have to write a lot of words to say not a lot. Like, oh, I really do care a lot, is what you end up writing in these bids and proposals and things like that. But B Corp as an accreditation is kind of that immediate alignment that somebody has gone to what is at the moment the gold standard of being a savvy ESG-wise incorporation. And has evidenced it and has got a third party validated to say these guys are really giving back to the community. So we have a complete profile on the B Corp website where it shows everything in terms of what we do and how we do it at that point. So I think this will really improve our customer value proposition. This means that if you're a customer who has strong ESG principles, or maybe you're a B Corp yourself, you'll want to align with suppliers who are likewise. You'll be mandated, frankly, to do that. It'll be part of your thing. So I think customers, one, employee value propositions, two. We see it increasingly important to attract skilled workers to us. They want to work for a company that gives back to the world. They don't just want to work for a paycheck. They want for something that's more meaningful. Working for a B Corp means quite a lot to people. You'll see the names of famous B Corps held up in high regard. Things like Patagonia, things like that, are companies that are really held up as the places to go and work. So now we think of ourselves as being counted amongst some of those names because we have that employee value proposition. And frankly, it also plays to an investor proposition. So when I'm looking to attract new investment to the business or something like that, being able to invest in a high quality, high growth, profitable business that aligns, then would go into an ESG fund, for example, or something like that, is a killer investment for somebody who's looking to get something there. There's still quite a lot of money to be had in the market, and putting that into a place that is aligning well with those issues that matter and ticks boxes in terms of profitable and growing, that's really hard to do. So for me, between customers, employees, and investors, it's a bit of a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's like you're wearing your heart on your sleeve in a way, and therefore, as you walk in the door, there's a lot, it says something about you before you need to talk about anything else. And that must make the conversations easier. Ben, that's really clear. And again, I'm really applaud your innovation and the fact that you've got in there first. You're not the last in the queue. You're the first, pushing the boundaries. And it seems to be working. You know, if you look at the Fosway report, which is just a few weeks old, everything seems to be aligning for you and for Learning Pool. So I congratulate you on that yet again. And all strength to your elbow. You know, I hope that you continue to do what you're doing and that your influence will actually spread through the industry as a whole. And there may be other companies saying, well, maybe we should copy Learning Pool and do this, because it's clearly benefits all around and also benefits to the world, you know, more broadly. You've said, you've made statements about what you're going to do, and you have to really do it. So congratulations again.
Thanks, Nigel. Means a lot.
Thank you.
Upskill and inform your learners with Mind Tools for Business. Empower your people to thrive at work and help them step up and meet everyday workplace challenges with confidence. Our toolkit provides unlimited access to thousands of quality assured resources, all in one place. It's easy to use and on demand, anytime, anywhere. Experience stress-free onboarding with dedicated client partner support. And get access to our library of industry insight and expert analysis. Perform, manage, lead with Mind Tools for Business. Visit mindtoolsbusiness.com to find out more.
Stella Collins begins a 6-part series on neuroscience and the brain. And the first introductory section that you're going to hear today is called Meet Your Brain. I hope you're mutually in love with each other.
Welcome to episode 1 of Neuroscience for Learning with me, Stella Collins, and my colleague, Jan Couvreur. Hi, Jan.
Good morning.
Let's start by finding out how our brains learn. You sometimes hear people say that we're like sponges, that we can soak up information, but sadly that's not the case. Whilst a sponge can soak up water, we have to work much harder to soak up new knowledge with our brains, let alone build new skills or habits. So I'm going to invite you to build a brain, and I'd like you to join in because physically doing things actually helps you learn better. Jan, you're going to join in too, aren't you?
Of course.
Okay, so our brains are very energy hungry. They use about 20% of our body's energy when we're doing not very much at all. So let's see what happens if we don't use our brains well and when we do use our brains well. Let's see what happens when we're learning. So first of all, I'd like you to put up your right hand. And that's your brain stem. It keeps you alive. It looks after your heart rate, your breathing, keeps you from feeling hungry, it tells you when you're thirsty, regulates your sleep. It's really, really important. And if you don't serve your brain stem first, it's going to make a lot of noise and a lot of fuss because it dominates. It needs to be fed before anything else is. And then make a fist. And with your fist here, this is the inner part of your brain, the central cerebrum. In there, we have our unconscious emotional processing, incredibly important for memory, and it's where we build skills. And our skills use less energy if we have habituated skills, habits, regulated patterns of behavior. That uses less energy than when we're consciously thinking about stuff. If you put your other hand over the top now, that then becomes your cerebral cortex. Now that's the pink, not grey, pink part of your brain, pink because it's full of blood. And that processes our senses, it helps us use movement, but also it's where our prefrontal cortex at the front here, which is what processes all our conscious thinking, our working memory, conscious cognitive skills, decision-making, and it's really energy hungry. So when we're learning, what we're trying to do is take things from our energy hungry, conscious prefrontal cortex and put them down into the cerebrum down here where we have unconscious processing. So let's think about the challenge of what that looks like at work and why sometimes we have some particular challenges with our brains and energy at work. Jan, can you tell us a bit about the context of that, context of learning at work?
Of course, we'd be happy to. Well, in the professional context, we do have a challenge. And the challenge is, and that has been proven by research, lots of figures, lots of data, only 15% of our learners
15.
actually apply what they have learned in their professional day-to-day. And that makes learning investments, time and money, very, very inefficient. Why inefficient? Because in a professional context, it's all about doing. Of course, you need the knowledge, you need the skills to be able to do all those things, but you actually need to do it. So our focus in learning in the professional world should be all about actually doing things. How do we approach this? We have our GEAR methodology in place. And this is a methodology that has been researched, but we tested and tried it as well. It's a really simple methodology that comes in 4 important steps. Step 1, which is all about guide. This is where we bring in bite-sized information to all learners, but we combine this with reflection. What could this information mean to you? Why is that relevant? How could it bring value to you? Second stage, experiment. It's really stepping up to the real life. It's giving them a safe and structured environment where they can, supported by their peers and of course an expert, a facilitator, try out, experiment and get a hang of those new skills, of course, based on that knowledge. Third step, the most important one, is all about applying. It's really doing it in real life and reflecting on how that went, and of course combining that with feed forward from experts, from peers, so we can continue to apply, continue to get better at this. And the last stage, retain. Our brain is built to forget. Our brain, as you mentioned, Stella, energy hungry, it needs lots of energy to remember all those things, so it becomes really picky. We have to break that tendency and make sure that all learners really shift their knowledge from short-term to long-term. And by spaced repetition and spaced practice on the right level of difficulty, we can make this happen. And this is our approach to making sure that learning actually leads to transfer, and we keep our learners motivated throughout the full process.
Fantastic, Jan. It's all about going from knowing to doing, isn't it?
Definitely.
See you in the next video.
Bye.
Bye.
Next up is Robin Hoyle, who is summarising some of his recent interviews and funneling them through the lens of workplace transfer.
If you've seen me before on Learning Now TV, you'll know that I'm pretty much interested in the world of workplace transfer. Specifically, what is it that we do to enable people to change their behaviour once they go back into their day jobs after some kind of learning intervention? Well, we had blended learning, didn't we? And blended learning was fine, but fundamentally when e-learning first became an option to be combined with face-to-face courses somewhere in a conference room, we put it all up front. We gave people a load of content via the form of series of e-learning modules, many of which had a test at the end, which was really useful because the answer was always C, or the longest response that you could have chosen. And then we put that stuff ahead of time. We assumed that people had done some stuff, and if they didn't, we had some test results, so we could say, well, this bunch didn't do very well, or this bunch did pretty well. Not that it really changed very much what we did when we got into the classroom, but fundamentally, we had a blend of e-learning in advance of a classroom experience, which was basically where the return on investment came from. because the return on investment within blended learning was about the ability to reduce the amount of time off the job in order to reduce the overall cost, because we all know that classroom stuff is the really expensive part of any learning intervention. But increasingly over the years, we've heard people talk about learning journeys and learning experiences which join things together. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily involve a classroom at all. But what it always must involve, if we are talking about helping people to improve their performance, is something which supports, enables, and on occasions monitors what people do back in the workplace. So that's what workplace transfer is all about. And I've spoken to a number of people. Many of those people have been interviewed by me for Learning Now TV to talk about, well, how do we make sure that that really works, that that really has an impact on what people need to do within the workplace? And so today I just wanted to give you 3 top tips. The first is, don't, whatever you do, assume that there is an end point at the classroom. And we give those messages very subtly. We give those messages by handing out happy sheets or evaluation forms while people are in the classroom. We ask them within that happy sheet, and this is point number 2, to complete an action plan which nobody ever looks at. And very often that action plan is contained within the happy sheet, which is taken away by the trainer. And believe me, I've been in enough training rooms to know nobody looks beyond what's the overall score that you give this course. So fundamentally, the second point is to make sure that the action plan is meaningful. And then thirdly, make sure that the action plan is public and followed up. And by public, I mean it might be shared with an individual colleague, it might be shared with their manager, might be shared just with the facilitator or trainer involved in the group session if that's part of the overall learning experience. But make sure there is time booked for that follow-up to actually say to people, what is it that you've done differently? You said you were going to. How did that go? What happened? What are you going to do next to continue your development journey? And fundamentally, that's what workplace transfer means. It means making sure that you capture what people are going to do differently, you give appropriate time within the overall journey to get that to be as specific as it can be, and you follow up afterwards. So, workplace transfer, an essential part of any learning intervention that we devise, however the inputs are created, however people gain new content or new experiences, whether that's from their peers, whether that's from some digital resource, whether that's from a blend of all of those different resources. But fundamentally, unless something changes, we've not really done our job.
In the L&D world, we all know our biggest challenge is knowledge fade and demonstrating ROI from our training interventions. At Elephants Don't Forget, we use artificial intelligence to guarantee that what you train your employees, they learn and retain. If you are looking to transform the impact your training content has in your business, improve the ROI, and perhaps help employees learn and retain even the dull regulatory material, drop me a line at nelly@elephantsdon'tforget.com.
In this month's Charity Learning Consortium section, Michelle Parry-Slater is talking to Esther Redmond from the Wood Green Pets charity about the sometimes often forgotten but highly valuable area of reflection in learning.
Welcome to Learning Now TV. This section, sponsored by the Charity Learning Consortium, is where we showcase fantastic work that's being done in the third sector. And I'm so excited today to be able to talk to Esther Redmond. Now, Esther is a people partner, the talent partner for learning and development at Wood Green Pets charity. So, you know, I'm all about my dogs. So unsurprisingly, speaking to an animal charity, it's wonderful to have you with us, Esther. Thank you for joining us. Esther, you have been doing some fantastic work in leadership, particularly around blended programs for your aspiring leaders and ongoing. And I'd love to talk to you today a little bit about that blend itself. But the key thing for me that you're doing, which is really interesting, is about the reflection piece. So can you introduce yourself a little bit and sum up a little bit of the story so that we can start thinking about the reflection, because that's quite unusual.
Hello, thanks Michelle for inviting me here today. Hi, yes, I'm Esther, I'm a talent partner, and one of the things that I've been working on recently is a programme for our managers at Wood Green, specifically for a number of sort of reasons in terms of really embedding good management practice and upskilling managers in that crucial people aspect. We often talk about people getting promoted into their first line management job because they're really good at the job, but actually they need to know the people side of it, which is what we wanted to do. In terms of the reflection piece, I suppose it came partly from myself. Having come from an education background, you're often taught to be a reflective practitioner. But what we also know, and I feel as well, that reflection has a really, really strong place in learning. That ability just to be able to reflect on what's happened, be that positive or negative in that person's perception, and actually think, okay, so how could I change this? So reflection was definitely a key part of the programme in terms of asking people to just take some time during the training sessions themselves, quietly reflect on some of the topics that we've then covered, setting that into context with their own teams, their own departments, but also then after each session. So going away from that session and just being given some guided questions as part of the post-training session email that was sent to them that just gave them food for thought around, okay, that was lovely, I've learned that, but what does that actually mean to me? How can I put it into practice?
So these things were going on during, so you had a blend of activities with live in-person sessions, and you were taking a pause in those sessions in order for people to just contextualize, to reflect on the theory and see how they could apply it in their own individual context. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly what we did. We took, literally, they each had a workbook that we generated for the course that they would download, print and bring with themselves. And that had the certain points in the book that they would then have space just to reflect and write down if they wanted to. Everybody wanted to write something down, but the point was that we did stop the session. There was that period of time where they could just consolidate, reflect, and reflect generally individually, even though the reflection guidance that we gave them obviously gave them the option of reflecting between a couple of them or small group, but in the session it was generally done individually.
And did that feel strange? I mean, is reflection something that Wood Green does a lot? Do you have your sort of team meetings and start reflecting, or was this a new skill that you were bringing?
I think it was probably a mixture. I think there were some people that I think absolutely were reflecting, but had they made that connection in their mind that this is what I'm doing now, I'm reflecting. But I think we probably connected the dots for some people, and for some other people, we perhaps introduced something that was more new to them. But I have to say, they all took to it like ducks to water. They did fantastically in terms of just taking the time to just stop in the session and actually think about, okay, what is it I'm doing? And the hope is obviously that they can continue that if it's beneficial for them. And use that to enhance their kind of learning and development path as they develop in their role and as individuals.
So you've encouraged them to continue it by after the live sessions, you've encouraged reflection with emails and other such things. Do you want to just talk us through what does it look like beyond the live session for your blend?
So beyond the live session, then after the session, they would receive an email from me saying, obviously, thank you for attending, just sort of going over the main topics we discussed, and then giving them further questions for reflection. Giving them quite a few questions so they could reflect on all of them, or they could just cherry pick the ones that they wanted to. The purpose of the email was also to kind of detail some of the commitments that they'd made in the session as well. So what we asked each of them to do, again, at the end of the session, just take time to reflect. You've soaked up all this learning. What are you going to commit essentially to take away back to your team, back to your department and try out? So an example of that might be somebody says, well, we've learnt the GROW model for coaching today. I'm going to give that a go with one of my team and see how it works. And those were then also detailed in the email. And quite often that would then come up in subsequent sessions because they would share what they'd done and how it had worked. So yeah, that was the kind of way of just keeping them on track in terms of, if you want to reflect, here's something to think about.
So as we've heard from Esther today, reflection, building reflection into your everyday practice. I mean, why wouldn't you? It's so important in the busy lives that we all lead, where we're running from one meeting to the next meeting, to just pause and think about what we've experienced, what we've learned, the theory that we might have been exposed to, and how we can apply it to our context. So it's wonderful to hear from Esther that actually that is what's happening at Wood Green. And it's really making for better managers in that space. And so if you want to make a better manager, then think about your reflection as well. Until next time on Learning Now TV.
Maybe we'll do that later. Hey, so you can see this is just like using a whiteboard in a classroom. And then you do my 3-year-old's favourite, you just have a nice little wiggle. 1, 2, 3, rate it now.
A really quick question, you might want to answer this later.
You see, I love this.
Bob Mosher is back with the third installment of his virtual instruction series. Fascinating, valuable, enjoy.
Welcome back, friends. Bob Mosher here. As I was introduced in previous videos, I am the co-founder of an organization called Apply Synergies. We help companies with the 5 moments of need in designing for workflow learning. And an element of that is this whole world that this series is about, which is the power of virtual instruction and how it's emerged and become so much a pivot and a mainstay in our toolkit since we've ended the last several years of COVID and other craziness. This is the third episode. We're going to talk a bit more about designs that have emerged that can help make virtual instruction powerful. It's funny, friends, because this is almost analogous to the days of when e-learning first emerged, if you were old enough like me to remember those days. When it was first there, what did we do? Well, we took our classes that were engaging. We took our PowerPoints that were engaging, right? The activities that we also felt were engaging in class, and we put them online. We put a back and forward button, we put an audio narrative over it, maybe video if we could handle it back then, and poof, we had e-learning, and candidly, not very good e-learning, right? So when you go from one medium to another, you have to learn that there are nuances. Same thing happened with virtual. I think when we got thrust into this in a big way, back when COVID first hit, a lot of us stood up the medium and said, look, let's take a great instructor, put him on a camera, get everybody in there, same PowerPoint, same activities, off we'll go, even same time frame, and for many, it fell flat. Doesn't mean it wasn't great or couldn't be remarkable. In fact, in some ways, I think it can be as powerful or more so than the classroom. We really just didn't give it a chance because of the design. So today we're going to talk about an acronym called GEAR, G-E-A-R, as a way to kind of explain 4 emerging approaches that have to do with powerful virtual instruction. The irony is 3 of the 4 letters in the acronym aren't virtual at all. So let's go through them. G for gather. Obviously, there's the virtual session. How long should it be? A lot are kind of coming in the hour and a half to possibly 2 hours long. We just can't keep people online, friends, for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours like we kept them in class. In fact, many of us learned that maybe we shouldn't do that in class at all. Maybe a topic for another video. But as far as virtual is concerned, really, 90 minutes to an hour, cognitive overload, right? And the engagement in that 90 minutes we'll talk about in our next episode, because we really have to be powerful about what we decide to gather about, what's warranted for the instruction, and how do we do it well. Episode 4. So the gather, hour to hour and a half, and then we let them go. They can't go beyond that. So we have to take what were our longer courses, candidly, and divide them up into cognitive doses that are more digestible, but also can tolerate the medium. Now, EA and R. What do we do when they're not with us? Well, E stands for expand, friends. We can give them, because we've got time now. We talked about spaced learning in the last episode. We've got time now, friends, to actually let people in the time between the gathers, 2 days, 3 days, a week, to actually expand on their learning. Give them more reading. Give them a video. Give them e-learning. They can even expand on things or maybe even go beyond things we didn't even choose to cover in the gather. Again, we'll talk more about that in design, some other design elements in our next episode. Let them expand their knowledge from the nugget and chunk you taught. A, G-E-A-R, gather, expand. The A is for apply. This is probably one of the most powerful parts of this. And when we've run this model by other learners and done some analysis after and some evaluation, A and R were two of the most powerful, frankly, even more so than the gather session itself. Everybody wants to take learning, we talked about this before, and use it. If our instruction is not about application, why are we teaching at all? Right? So apply is so powerful. You've taught them this manageable section of instruction, 90 minutes to 2 hours tops. You now take a breath, you expand on that for some understanding, but then you give them assignments and things to do. They apply the area which you've tried, and they get a chance to fail. They get a chance to remediate. And more importantly, they get a chance to internalize and come back with feedback. Come back with ways to find out more. R stands for receive feedback, right? At the end, we find to go back and say, in the expand, in the apply, questions from the gather, how is it sitting? What ways can an instructor add to that conversation? What ways can they help with the remediating? What ways can they help the instructor and the student apply what they learned better? Gear, G-E-A-R. We still gather, friends. There will still be virtual like I'm doing there right now. But let's empower it with 3 more important and even more powerful areas. Expand, apply, receive feedback. G-E-A-R. Next episode, we'll talk more about the engagement side and some decisions around what goes in gather and what might want to or might not want to. Thanks, friends. Be well. Hope the series has been helpful. Please let me know if you have questions. Otherwise, we'll see you in episode 4. Take care. Be safe. Talk soon.
When I was at the Learning Technologies Conference, I saw Rob Clark with his little studio built on the back of the exhibition, grabbing people all the way through the conference. And he's now got a compilation of highlights, people who were speaking, and I think you'll enjoy that. So well done, Rob, for doing that. A lot of effort went into it.
Learning News is at Learning Technologies 2023. The event has just opened. Let's find out what's happening.
We need, in learning and development, to be proving our value so that the budget becomes not a discretionary spend, but rather something that is built into the business because it adds value. Showing value remains for me the top priority.
Like lots of things at the moment, budgets is the one thing, they want more for less, and return on investment.
We're seeing the nature of the way people are using our technology changing.
Learning teams are feeling the squeeze, feeling heightened pressure, but there's still an awareness of how important this function is.
Now more than ever, it's important to show that what we're doing matters and makes a difference.
And that means aligning our L&D metrics with our business KPIs.
Measuring the impact of training and learning is difficult and possible.
What's the value that we're creating from our digital learning activity? How do we sustain that? How do we create the evidence that proves that it's working?
Making sense of how to do skilling efficiently so that you can actually map from a skills ontology all the way to the work being done on the other end.
Hybrid working has led to challenges within the workforce. Recruitment is difficult. Organisations now realise that there's a real requirement for them to be able to provide internal mobility to help with staff engagement and retention.
Every client that we talk to has the shortage of skilled workers. So that's one thing that we're trying to address with our offering is upskilling at scale.
How can I use generative AI and to help understand what people know, building content, skill assessments, whether it's even helping managers have better one-on-one conversations.
We're really delighted actually to be partnering with our colleagues over at Learning Pool, using a lot of their great development and tech work and the Best of Mind Tools content.
What Converse does is uses generative AI to really kind of allow people to role play and practice skills.
Deliberate practice in a safe environment against a trusted framework.
We have had AI in our products for a long time, but now we have at least 3 core parts in our platform. One around analytics, one around sentiment analysis, and one around skills.
What's interesting about this year's learning technologies is that there's also an HR technology side to this space. And from a recruitment perspective, AI is being used very heavily already.
In a few years' time, we'll be watching videos that we've requested our AI to make us rather than getting some stuff from Netflix. So watch out for that sort of level of excitement inside the learning industry as well.
The major challenges in the L&D market in 2023 is not that much about economic situation, it's about harnessing AI and data-driven learning, rapid technology adoption.
RUVR is the most deployed and used platform for extended reality learning in enterprises.
We're transforming it from a very text-heavy, very dry 2D linear module into a fully immersive module using 360 video, and the learner can really interact with the scene and the technology as if they were there in real life.
We have a very good LMS learning management system and also a content creator tool, which is super easy to use. We will show how you can create a nice online course in only 30 minutes.
Rise Up is launching today. You don't need an LMS. Rise Up is completely embedded into tools like Microsoft Teams, Salesforce, which means that the end user has a seamless integration, a seamless user experience.
Thrive and learning technologies kind of go hand in hand, right? We're here to make an impact, and we're here to talk about obviously all the services that we offer, but really this year is focused on our Compliance Club launch, which is reshaping the way that people can do compliance and approach compliance within their organizations.
Serving the needs of the larger corporations out there, usually with more than 10,000 employees, managing complex operations globally across many countries.
We're here to solve content chaos. A lot of our customers have invested a lot in content, but they're drowning in content. What we're trying to do is help them solve that problem.
That total learning solution is really what we're all about. Partnering with companies like Articulate, Beyond. We've got our guide products, which allows users to be learning processes and systems whilst they're using systems rather than being taken out of the work environment into training rooms or online training or into LMS systems.
Where we're really a great fit and have grown tremendously over the last years is what we call multi-unit organizations, multi-store organizations, franchise organizations, or also frontline workers, deskless workers, hourly workers. We can really deal with fairly complex organizations.
Real learning happens when you activate it, when you put it into practice with other people. So that needs to be all built in. So we've worked really hard at Total to build a platform that makes that more natural to do and draws together the conversations that really need to happen in larger organisations, which is it's not just about L&D, it's not just about HR and performance management, it's about working together, and you need the right tools and infrastructure to achieve that.
We've been announced as the Global Partner of the Year for Totra, so that's partly about commercial success and strength. Importantly, not just
new organisation clients, but retention of existing clients. So that's one of our sort of USPs. We work really hard on the support side, very consultative relationship with our clients.
We have all the functionality of an LMS, the LXP. The LRS are bringing the data in and really making business impact and valuable sort of data insights. And then we really pride ourselves on helping organisations and working with them, augmenting their learning teams.
CLO 100 is a 12-month programme for heads of learning, those that are accountable for learning and development in their organisations.
The Learning Network's a community interest company. We exist to help L&D professionals across the spectrum connect, network, work together and help everyone improve what we do as an industry.
What's the aim of the 30 Under 30 programme?
It's to give 30 people, guess what, who are under 30, an opportunity to attend a conference they wouldn't normally get to, and hopefully a lot of those relationships that they establish here today and yesterday will last through their careers.
Meeting all the different learning leaders, the speakers, the connections that you make, it just helps boost your confidence and feel like you're really part of this L&D community.
And that's what some of the exhibitors and participants at Learning Technologies 2023 had to say. There's much more from Learning News at this year's show. Check out the website for my reports and more. Thank you for watching. See you next time.
Well, I'm slightly breathless, Kate, after all of that content. It's a fantastically interesting program. Highlights for you?
Well, I mean, I always love to hear Stella's thoughts on the brain. I think it's fascinating. So many of us go about our daily lives, go about our daily jobs. And again, as Michelle covered off in the charity learning section, not enough of us maybe take that time to reflect. But why do we do things? Why do we do things the way that we do them? And there's that book, we've talked about before, Surrounded by Idiots, sort of trying to understand how everybody else's brains work as well. I think that can do us all a lot of favours just to take some time to think about how we operate and then how that fits in with, teammates, family, friends, etc.
Yeah, and life in general. I thought Ben Betts was very interesting as well, because in some ways, Ben is doing in Learning Pool what we're asking everyone in learning to do with their organization, which is focus on the big picture. And Ben is trying to turn Learning Pool into a very interesting, broadly focused endeavor that isn't just about profit. It's about community and about putting stuff back and supporting society in general. And they've gone through a very rigorous process to become a B Corp. And I wish them luck. They're still on the journey. They've got the accreditation, but they've really got to make it work now for not only their staff, but also their customers and their associates. So good on Ben. I thought that was a really brave move. And I hope gives the company some reward, because they're the first into this and probably not the last into it either. So it was a good program. I thought really interesting program. So Kate, tell us what else is there to stimulate and excite us over the next couple of months?
Well, I mean, I am just about recovered from Unleash America, but there is a slew of events that are coming up either side of the summer holidays. So 7th to the 9th of June, the CIPD Festival of Work is happening in London, Olympia. I'll be in Zante, so never mind. But have fun if you're going to go to that, always a good one. 15th of July, our friend Elliot Macy is running his Learning Festival in New York, and I know that is going to be an absolute hoot. I wish I could go to that. 13th and 14th, our friends at the LPI are running Learning Live in London, and 10th to the 11th of October is World of Learning at the NEC in Birmingham.
Yeah, that's quite a good collection of different events. They're not same old, same old. So please take note of those and attend those that you can. And we will be back on the 29th of June. We'll see you then.
See you then.